It is Locked On Jazz for the 26th of October. Coming to you from Denver on an Ask LOJ edition. First, Will Hardy's way he dealt with foul trouble was super interesting the other night. And we'll have that. We'll look at that. Plus, then we'll get into all the questions. And there's one big question everyone wants answered. What is it? Is the front office going to pivot off the rebuild? It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day each and every day. We are free. We are available on all podcasting apps. We are available on YouTube as well. Our YouTube question of the day is, if the Jazz start 13-7, I just made that up, do you want the front office to pivot? I want to know what you guys think, because that's going to be the number one question on Ask LOJ here throughout the day. All right, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I have this either just bleak back window, which makes wall of my hotel, which either makes it look like I'm in an insane asylum, which is what a hotel I've decided might be, or, though this one's pretty gorgeous, or I have the glare on the back, and the glare on the back's not great. So we'll pivot here. Thanks for those of you watching on YouTube. For those of you listening on the podcast, you're wondering what the heck that was all about, and had no idea. All right, I thought there was something interesting I didn't get to yesterday on the game before. We're all just watching what Will Hardy does and trying to learn who he is and his different styles and his different techniques. And we talked about the lineups yesterday, which I think was representative that he's a flow coach. He's just going to kind of let it rip. And there'll be probably some nights where he misses. He hasn't seemingly yet. The other one will be that I think is worth kind of keeping an eye on is foul trouble. And I thought he dealt with it really, really interestingly the other day. So Jordan Clarkson got 2 fouls in the first quarter, which is a traditional time to take a player out. There is a rising viewpoint amongst analytics, but also just intuitive logic about foul trouble. What is foul trouble? Foul trouble is that someone gets in fouls, and therefore you don't get to play them because they're in foul trouble, and so you end up trying to save them for the rest of the game so that they don't foul out. And then at the end of the night, they haven't played their regular 32 minutes. They've only played 26 because they were in foul trouble. To some extent, when you check a player out of the game because he has too many fouls, you're guaranteeing that the foul trouble happens. Right? The other school of thought is that, okay, well, the player gets 2 fouls, which is the traditional time in the first quarter where you take someone out because of foul trouble, and you say, well, actually, I'm going to roll with it, and if he gets his third, then I'll take him out. Then we actually do have foul trouble. But to some extent, when you just take him out automatically at 2 fouls or 3 fouls in the first half or 4 fouls in the third quarter, it's kind of always if the fouls are more than the quarter, you're guaranteeing that their minutes will be limited and that foul trouble will be an impact. You're not leaving any possibility that maybe the player can play and not pick up another foul, particularly when you think about the fact that most players, other than Jared Vanderbilt and Kelly Olynyk right now, don't average 6 fouls a game. Kelly and Jared are at a pretty high level. So what's interesting, so Clarkson gets his second foul in the second quarter, and the old the book of baseball and the book of basketball, they're both kind of dumb, but we have them, would have said to take Jordan Clarkson out of the game. And he didn't. And Jordan Clarkson finished the quarter, had a great game, and then finished the game, I don't remember with how many fouls, but he ended up playing his regular minutes. It was really exact example of kind of the modern way to deal with foul trouble, which is, that you kind of play with. Clarkson playing 29 minutes, plays regular amount. Mike Conley picks up his 4th foul to open up the third quarter, and Will Hardy's like, you're out. Okay, now that's the old traditional. But clearly what that decision is that, oh, wait a sec, I have to have Mike Conley on the floor to close a game. I absolutely have to have Mike Conley's final 10, 8, 9 minutes of the fourth quarter for me are way more important than any other minutes. I can get through it, but when the game gets down to the final minutes of the game, I've got to have Mike Conley on the floor. And so Mike Conley sat, and then Mike Conley came in and, frankly, was outstanding. He hit a big three at the 9-minute mark. He made a beautiful, incredible pass. And then in the third quarter, with Jared Vanderbilt, I almost think that the way he's coaching Jared Vanderbilt is, okay, he's going to get 6 fouls. I'm totally fine with it. And we're just going to play him as much as we possibly can until he gets 6 fouls, and then we'll play other guys. So, because Vanderbilt gets his 4th foul at the 9:30 mark, and then he got an extra 3 minutes out of him and got his 5th foul at the 6:16 mark, and then he sat him. And by the end of the night, Jared Vanderbilt fouls out of the game, so you actually get the maximum minutes you were going to get out of Vanderbilt, which on that night was 19. Kelly Olynyk had a similar thing, and he played him a little bit more cautiously because he actually wanted Olynyk late in game, and he fouled out with 29 minutes. So I thought it was interesting. I'll probably ask Will about that today. But it was interesting to see him manage the 4 different players in foul trouble, and he managed them all a little differently. And I think it's insightful, and it also shows some real flexibility on his end. All right, so I wanted to get to that. Let's get to Friday edition of Ask LOJ here on Locked On Jazz. I love this show. Friday used to be our points game day. We're going to actually integrate it in because one of the questions is about points game. I've always loved. I didn't used to do these, but I got to be honest. Your questions are so in tuned and on it and perfect to what everybody wants to know that it's actually become, I think, one of our best shows every Friday, and it's kind of the perfect show to have over the weekend for anybody who's catching up on the week, because you guys do a wonderful job of kind of capsulating everything that's taking place. So let me get to the questions and do it, and then we have all these neat new graphics too. All right, so this is not a question, he says, which I love. I flipped it like 3 times. Sorry. This is not a question. I just thought this was the right place to lead off, but a statement. This is from Matt James. I'm really enjoying the start of the season. The wins and the attitude of all the Jazz players has made it easy to root for the new version of the Jazz. I think that is the absolutely perfect place to start this week, and absolutely the truth of the matter. That's where I think most of us feel it has been totally inspiring and fun. And, I think our memory of last year has become worse over time, not better. And made last year feel more miserable than it probably actually was. But it has been absolutely rewarding to see that. All right, I have to share with what just happened here. This is pretty funny. So when I have to read the tweets, I go to my glasses. But if you look, evidently in the travel, for those of you on YouTube, one of the lenses fell out of one of my glasses. So this is now only this is kind of a opposite of a bifocal. One eye is perfect and the other eye is, all right. Anyway, the travels and tribulations of David. How well does this Jazz team need to perform before the organization starts seriously looking at leveraging our massive pick stash to acquire talent to win now? Also, love this group already. Best surprise after a tough summer. I think that actually might be the truest comment here, is that last summer, the losing of Donovan and Rudy and the realization that it had come to an end was the toughest part about this. And so I think that that's actually where the toughness may have had the impact. I'm just going to roll through a bunch of questions here. If the Jazz keep playing well, does the front office still make trades? As well as we've all been enamored by Markkanen's games and potential, do you believe the front office targeted him specifically? Oh, that was not another one. All right, so let's go to these first 2 questions, because this is, I think, the number one question on everyone's mind with this start. It's like, are we still in a reload mode? I think everything that Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, and Ryan Smith has said to us is still true. They're trying to build a championship team. Ryan is unbending on this. We're trying to build a championship level team. That is the goal. That we're gonna and to build a championship level team, you have to probably acquire some fabulous draft picks like a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown, like Danny did in Boston, like a Luka Doncic as they did in Dallas. Like, and I know those teams haven't won a championship yet. I mean, the irony is that Steph was later in Giannis, and there's all these unique players right now. So I think that what I heard from Danny, Ryan, and Justin was that the Jazz are on a 36-month trajectory of building the franchise up and then trying to move it forward. So even if the franchise starts at 5-15, something crazy, I'm not sure that it is time to say, like, we're a buyer. Because I'm not sure that the depth of the roster long term is actually there to build the franchise forward for a championship level team. Okay? So I don't know that this changes a great deal. It reminds me a lot of Jeff Hornacek's Phoenix Suns team, which stunned the world and went 48-30. They were 25-57 with Alvin Gentry and then a mess of a Lindsey Hunter situation. And then they came back in 13-14, and they were supposed to be like horrendous. And Jeff Hornacek kind of took over, and they went 48-34, and everyone got super excited. And it was kind of a mixed match of players, if I remember correctly. Goran Dragic was the like Lauri Markkanen of that team. He was like the player no one realized how good he was. And then he ended up having this massive season, averaged like 20 points. And then Eric Bledsoe was the young gun that came around and averaged 18. And they got, I mean, then it was kind of an unknown Channing Frye, P.J. Tucker, Morris twins, Plumlee. There was a Plumlee, maybe a Zeller. I don't think there was a Zeller. I'm just saying that. I mean, it was really a mismatch of players that somehow did that. It would probably, again, somewhat reminiscent or similar to this. And then, if you recall, that doesn't go great. They end up the next year, it kind of comes back to bite them as they go 39-43, and then all of a sudden they're 14-35 the next year, and Jeff gets fired, and so they accelerated their like path maybe a little quicker than they should have because they got greedy after that year, and I think that you have to be pretty careful of that happening here. That there is a plan, it's the right plan, it's been executed perfectly to this point, and it has been. The basketball has been terrific, and they're playing great. And, they kind of feels like they have a real shot to make a run at the play-in team, particularly if the Lakers are not one of those 10 teams. And you have a chance to make a run for those 7 through 10 spots right now. Does that change your plan? Big picture. If the picture is to win a championship, not just to win 50 games, then I don't think so, is my quick thought. Friday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai. I got to share this story. So I work out every morning when I'm at home at a gym in town, hoity-toity Park City little class. I go every morning and try to be really diligent about it. And the people there are wonderful. And one of the women there is just super nice and great, totally awesome shape, like inspirational. And they all are. It's a super great group of people. And so I parked in the other day. I came into my Hyundai Sonata, and there's like the Mercedes, and there's a Porsche, and then there's the one awesome woman who drives her like minivan, doesn't care. Probably could buy all of us. So anyway, this is more than you need to know. It's just a super great group. I love them. Miss them when I'm on the road. And so I parked the other day next to a Hyundai Palisade. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was thinking about Murdoch and Hyundais. And this woman walks out, and I said, hey, how do you like it? She's like, I love it. It's amazing. She's like, my husband, total car guy, has to have the name brand. He has a Range Rover, but he actually wants to drive this all the time because he likes it more. And I think that's like the essence of Hyundai. Like, I think she nailed it right there. She's got the Palisade. It's got I'm like, does it have the turning signal thing where she's like, yes, it's amazing. And that's where if you turn your turning signal, you don't have to look over your shoulder because it gives you a camera right in the front of your dashboard to show you whether you're in blind spots. And it does kind of sum it up, right? The guy's got the Range Rover because it's got it like it's cool. Or maybe it's a Land Rover. I think it was a Land Rover. I don't know. It's one of those Rovers. And, but she's got the Palisade, and it's got all the bells. It's got all the whistles. It's got all the same things. It was not even anywhere near the same price. And she just loves it. And he actually wants to drive it. That's the essence of like when you buy a Hyundai. I really think that's it. Like the Sonata I'm driving, the sedan is amazing. Like I can't imagine you'd want anything more. And it does everything. It's fast. It's got all the safety features. The Palisade is the most beautiful SUV I've seen. The Kona, the Tucson, the Santa Fe worked their way up. Absolutely fabulous. And we have the Ioniq electric. So it's all over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street in Logan and Linden. I just had to tell that story. I thought it was super fun. So anyway, I'm now embarrassed that someone's going to hear that and they're going to tell me, and then they're going to ostracize me for my comments about, I don't know, my snide comments about ourselves. They're going to ostracize me as I go to the gym next on Monday. Anyway, Murdoch Hyundai, located 4646 South State Street in Logan and in Linden. David, stop talking so you do not get in any more trouble. Or change the topic and start talking about our friends over at Prize Picks with a 100% deposit match on up to a 100% promo code with the promo code LOCKEDON. What are you doing this weekend? You want to have some fun? Let's do it with Prize Picks. It's easy. It's daily fantasy for you. And it is simple level of get your entries in. Here's how it works. You pick 2 to 5 players. They go score more or less than their Prize Picks projections. You can win up to 10 times your money on an entry. No competing against other people. It's you versus projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you can watch, including NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college, all of it, I'm telling you. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's easy, safe, and fast withdrawal. Currently operational in 30 states or more. Download Prize Picks app. Go to theprizepicks.com and sign up for your daily fantasy sports. First-time users, $100 instant, 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit 100, you get 100. That's 100% of 100. If you deposit 50, you get 50. That's 100%. If you deposit 72, you get 72. That's 100%. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON to get that match up to $100 at Prize Picks. I love how you the world just makes us all the most insecure people in the world. I share it all the time here. I hope it's helpful to someone, because there's probably somebody out there who thinks wow, he's the radio voice of the Utah Jazz and he's got a great life and he's built a company. He shouldn't be insecure. Oh, trust me, we all are. And I am now terrified to return to my workout class on Mondays, hoping that Isaac or someone, no one actually hears my, and relays to the nice, wonderful people that I work out with that happened. All right. Where were we? We were on Ask LOJ. Let's continue. Let's see. Where's our Lauri Markkanen question I had? Here it is. He puts on his one reading glass. As we have all become enamored with Markkanen's game and potential, do you believe the front office targeted him specifically or have been pleasantly surprised too? Can I go with both here? So I think they targeted him specifically because he's 7 feet tall and he can shoot threes and he's really, really skilled. And everyone knew that. And I was talking to Brian Bailey, who is just such a talented coach on the Jazz staff, yesterday. And he had the Cleveland scout last year. And he was saying, I remember him saying to me when we were getting our kind of pregame scouting report from Brian last year, he's like, they're playing 3 7-footers, but none of them are stiffs. They're all elite athletic 7-footers. That's why they can do it. The question to me on Markkanen is not like, whoa, wow, Cleveland played him at small forward. It's like, why hasn't he been playing small forward this whole time? He can slide to center too, but he's so skilled and so agile. So I think you know that. You know he can shoot 5 or 6, 7 threes a game at 7 feet. You know at worst you're getting kind of a Duncan Robinson, Davis Bertans big level shooter and a pretty long player. And then you watch him in Finland, which hadn't happened yet. And so I think they knew that there was more to his game. Do they know that he's this skilled? Is he emerging? To say no almost implies that they weren't doing their job. So I don't want to say that. Were they pleasantly surprised? I thought the way that the Ask LOJ question came in is probably the perfect way to say that. I thought that was the right way to say it. So I'll go with that. Where does this team stack up in terms of last year's? Where does this team stack up to last year's team in points gained? Who is better in points gained, Mitchell or Lauri? Thanks so much for the great work as always and fun. Are the T-Wolves better if they get rid of Towns and keep Gobert? All right, lots of questions there, Drew. I think that last thing is a legitimate possibility sometime in the next 12 to 18 months. I'll say that. I've always thought that from the day they made that trade. All right, why? Funny you should ask about points gained on a Friday. Does somebody on Ask LOJ every Friday just want to make sure they get in the points gained question for me? So let's dig into our Friday points gained. For those who are new to the show, points gained is an offensive metric that I've created over the years that is trying to show who has the biggest positive impact on a game offensively. In the simplest form, it looks at players and how they use their individual possession compared to league average or not, And then the ability to use multiple possessions. So if you have a player that can only like dunk a few times, then that's just the one or two things that they get you. But if they have a player who can use a ton of possessions and is above league average, then they become the best that there are. So for example, and then the overall takeaway, by the way, is that you want to build a team. These are the two main takeaways we have on points gained over the years, is that you want to build a team, ideally, that is, one, has every player on the team using possessions at league average or above. That's what a championship caliber team does, because then when you force the ball out of Giannis Antetokounmpo's hands and somebody in Milwaukee gets the ball, they're still at least league average, and then you don't lose a lot. The second thing is our takeaway is that negative players that use possessions well below the league average, are far more detrimental to the well-being of a team than anyone realizes in this league. Like, if there's a Moneyball aspect to my numbers, it's that people still misjudge how negatively impactful it is to your team to have a negative offensive player. Russell Westbrook. But all right, so last year, just to give the concept, the number one player in the league was Nikola Jokic. Rudy was number 2. Kevin Durant was 3. Giannis, why was Rudy 2? Because he shot 71%. He was the only player in the history of the NBA to shoot 71% and use as many possessions as he did. And so he only uses 11 scoring opportunities a game, but he was 3.5. Those 11 scoring opportunities that Rudy used last year, he averaged 3.5 points more than what the average player would do with those 11. Nikola Jokic used 21 possessions. He was 3.9 points better. We usually have about 3 or 4 players above 3. Last year we had 5. They were Jokic, Gobert, Durant, Giannis, and Jared Allen. One thing that happened last year was that as teams deny the rim more and more, which has become the in vogue defense in the NBA, those players that can dunk and get to the rim became more valuable than ever before. So that was our huge takeaway last year on points gained. The remaining top 10 were Karl Anthony Towns, LeBron James, Joel Embiid, Robert Williams, DeAndre Ayton, Domantas Sabonis, Dwight Powell, who Dallas has taken out of their lineup, I think is a really big mistake. Rashawn Holmes, Mitchell Robinson, Trae Young, Okongwu in Atlanta, Zach LaVine, Steph Curry, Harrison Barnes. Okay, so that was last year. Let's look at the Utah Jazz so far in the early going after 5 games of points gained. I have not looked at these. One of the things I do for those who are new to this is I look at it with you for the first time together. Kelly Olynyk is 1.7. He's the most efficient player we have. He's also shooting it out from 3 like something crazy. Jordan Clarkson is a 0.9. That is so crazy, unheard of. Wow. Jordan Clarkson last year was a terribly inefficient player, and frankly, the reason why the Jazz came out as 13th offensively, or 12th offensively in the conference when I did the numbers this year, is because I increased Jordan's possession usage, and it hurt the team. Clarkson last year was the worst on the team at minus 1.0. For him to be at plus 0.9 is just outstanding. Walker Kessler plus 0.7, Jared Vanderbilt plus 0.6, Lauri Markkanen is 0.3, which is good. If you're above average as a heavy load player, he's at 19 scoring opportunities a game for us. Colin Sexton's a minus 0.2, Horton Tucker's a minus 0.9, Rudy Gay's a minus 1, Malik Beasley's a minus 1, and Mike Conley's a minus 2.8 to start the year. So that's where your Jazz are as of right now. Let's take a look at so Donovan last year, if you were wondering, was a 0.3. So right at about the exact same as what Lauri Markkanen is. So far this year, Giannis is breaking the NBA. These numbers are super high early in the year. At 7.2. Then Jason Tatum at 5.6. Nikola Jokic, who we'll see tonight, at 5.3. He's shooting 66% from the field, 91% from the free throw line. Christian Wood in Dallas is a surprise 4.8. Trey Murphy in New Orleans is shooting 68% from 3. He's a 4.8. De'Aaron Fox, despite the fact that Sacramento hasn't won a game, 4.8. Dame Lillard, 4.8. Devin Booker, 4.7. The best players in the world are all on top of this. Like, you can decide what you think of points gained, but like this right here, like when all the names make sense, it says something. It's also interesting is the dunkers aren't in here right now. It's really interesting to me. Wonder why. John Morant, I'm doing this all for the first time with you. John Morant, 4.6. Kevin Durant, 4.6. Bojan Bogdanovic, 4.5. Steph Curry, 4.3. Brandon Ingram, 4.0. Grant Williams, 3.8. Rookie, he hasn't played much. Let's see. Anyone else interesting? Dean Wade's been super good in Cleveland. Other guys have been really good so far. Marcus Morris, Nick Richards in Charlotte. There's your dunker. Chris Boucher. Theo Maladin, who's generally been bad, but he's had Michael Porter Jr., John Collins, Bradley Beal, Jalen McDaniels has been really good in Charlotte, not the Minnesota version. All right, let's take a look at who have been terrible. The least efficient offensive player in the league right now is Dylan Brooks at minus 6.7. Super surprising here. Drew Holiday at minus 6.0, worse than Russell Westbrook, who's at minus 5.7. Darius Garland has not played much. R.J. Barrett got his extension minus 5.0 so far, shooting 37%, 14% from three. I love this because I actually haven't followed every team yet. Miles Turner out with the injury. Keelan Hayes in Detroit. That's too bad. Maybe it's not going to work out. Lou Dort, major extension, minus 3.6. Cade Cunningham, minus 3.6. Fine when you're a rookie. You want to get out of here pretty quickly. Troy Brown with the Lakers, minus 3.5. Trae Young, minus 3.5. Surprising. Bad start for Trae Young. Grayson Allen, minus 3.5. Giannis is really carrying that team. Jamal Murray, minus 3.4. Just not quite right yet. It's too bad. Norman Powell, minus 3.3. Kendrick Nunn, Lakers, minus 3.3. David Roddy, Memphis' rookie at minus 3.3. Karis LeVert, he's always inefficient, minus 3.3. Terry Rozier, minus 2.9. Mike Conley, we mentioned, minus 2.8. And anyone else of interest? Klay Thompson struggling at minus 2.6. DeJounte Murray, minus 2.6. Wow, that backcourt is not great in Atlanta. All right, there's your point gained numbers for the day. I hope you enjoyed those. We'll come back, get the rest of you, do a little rapid fire here. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Second listen, Locked On Sports Today. Check it out, 22 minutes of all the things you need to know in a sports day for you, and we give it to you and have kind of the quick recap. Because if you have a wife, dog, car, job, anything out there, it's super hard to be able to get everything done you need to get done and keep up on the sports world, so we're doing it for you. All right, let's go back to your great questions today. Thank you very much for asking the point gains. If you want to get yourself on the show and get a shout-out, you just ask the point gains question every week, and we'll always get it for you. All right, thank you again to who was that? Thank you again to Drew Dunn for getting that question to us. All right, where does this team? Oh, I put it in twice. I was so excited for it. Realistically, what is the ceiling of this team? I mean, maybe the highest level is with that Phoenix Suns team I mentioned earlier, which would be like a 45, 46, 47, 48 win team. I don't. Let's let time go on and see what injuries happen. I hate to put a ceiling on people. But this league is usually generally drawn by the top guys I just mentioned in points gained, to Ja Morant. And, gosh, if you have not seen Ja Morant, come see him Saturday. And Luka Doncic and those guys usually carry wins. Like Luka's palindrome triple-double the other night was pretty incredible. And Lowry's really good, but we don't have that guy, so that seems to be something I would say precludes us from breaking through much more than that. So I'd say, if they keep this up, or they have 45, 46 win team, the early, by the way, rather than record, you always want to look at your point differential and where you rank in point differential. That's always the best way to kind of look at where you sit, and it's super early in the season to do that right now, but I would say we're 8th, we're plus 6. Overall, we're 17th offensively and 6th defensively. The number one team in the league right now is Cleveland at plus 11, and then Milwaukee at plus 10, and then New Orleans at plus 9, and then New York at plus 9 also. Phoenix at plus 9, so it's a little early for those things. If the Jazz added a superstar by trading a ton of picks, could this roster be a contender? Don't think about who they'd lose to match salary. Just magically add any one superstar to the current roster. Could they make the finals? Would it take more than one? It probably would take more than one, but if you're adding Giannis, or if you had Kevin Durant, and suddenly you're playing Lauri Markkanen and Kevin Durant both at 7 feet, and you're crazy long, could you suddenly do it, go all in, and be a title contender at that point? I don't think there's anyone in the league that's super great. Sorry, Warriors. If you added Luka, it would feel like we'd be really good, because he's Luka. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting question. What about Durant? Let's say Brooklyn, let's play around hypothetically. Brooklyn really falls apart, and all of a sudden Brooklyn needs to go and rebuild, and the Jazz want to trade for Kevin Durant, and you're going to put Kevin Durant and Lauri Markkanen as 2 7-footers with similar games together, what happens? Are we the team that does well in the beginning of the season, but we don't have any better, start hot, and then end up 30 and 52 like last year's Wizards? I don't feel like this team is that right now, but I understand that concept. It is just still super early. We've had a bunch of good bounces. I mean, we're like a bouncer game away from 5-0, but we're also like a game away from 2-3, and then it could go either way. So we've done a great job against the shot right now, but I would say we're very lucky on three-point shooting defense, and that's going to equalize out. And once that equalizes out, then we probably go from 6th defensively to like 12th defensively, and then we're probably around a 500 team, which gets to us finishing 500, the worst-case scenario for the Jazz this season. Or do you think the Jazz find a way to trade themselves to below that mark by the deadline? I don't think this. I think is really, really important. The Jazz have yet to make a trade because they're trying to get somewhere with a record or trying to do something trade-wise that is like to dump. Every trade that's been made, Royce O'Neal for a first-round pick, you can't avoid it. Rudy Gobert for 4 first-round picks and Walker Kessler, you have to make it. Donovan Mitchell for 3 first-round picks, Lauri Markkanen and Abaji, you have to make it. You have to make those deals. Bojan Bogdanovic one's a little harder to understand, but if you get inside the books of the team, and here's the basic thing. They were up against the luxury tax, which meant they didn't have the flexibility to make the next deal. By moving Bojan, they got $8 million under or $7 million under, which now allowed them to make the next deal. And they really, really had to do that. So when you suddenly start to look at those items and the way all the trades the Jazz have made so far have been based on that they really get value. And in the 36-month mold, if somebody else makes an offer here, which gives the Jazz awesome value, I would suspect they would take it. Because that's the – but I don't suspect that Danny Ainge and Justin Zanik can be like, oh, my gosh, we're 15 and 15, and we've got to be 25 and 55, and we've got to trade a player. And it doesn't matter what we take, just get rid of him. We haven't seen that yet in any way. And I don't know that I think that fits into the mold of anything that's going on here. So I think that's an important discrepancy. Other than Markkanen, which of the new players have you been most impressed with through 5 games? My answer is probably Talen Horton-Tucker. He's still not efficient, and he might not ever be an efficient offensive player because he shoots 25% from 3. But I am amazed at how many different ways he can positively impact the game. It's really remarkable. He's got a game that is just not normal to me at all. 6'4", 234 pounds, he plays like a fullback. He wants contact. He's very physical. His defense is impressive because of his 7'1" wingspan. He's just such an unusual player, and I think a good coaching staff can figure out how to use a player like that. And he basically won us the game the other night by playing backup. I mean, I kind of view him right now as our backup point guard. Ron Boone thinks I'm crazy, but I kind of view him as our backup point guard. Great lineup information. Do you want to know what other teams used? Trying to put that into perspective. Thank you. That was the flaw in yesterday's show, Alex, so you're exactly right. I did not have that. I have since talked to the NBA. The Jazz have used the 5th most amount of lineups in the NBA, and Oklahoma City has used the most. So thank you. That was a great question. Can you explain the decision not to draft Desmond Bane? How does he rate in your stat? I mean, simply the answer on how to not draft Desmond Bane, it was a mistake. Like a big mistake. It happens. And there were analytics that certainly showed that Desmond Bane was the right answer. Jaden McDaniel and Desmond Bane were on the board at that time, and both of them made so much sense, and the Jazz went with Udoka as a bouquet, and hopefully Udoka gets to play tonight. He's healthy, and, we don't hold – it's not his fault that he got drafted there. He's unfortunately been injured. So, we've really never found out what he was capable of. But, no, I mean, you just make mistakes. I mean, I just don't think there's any other way to say it. Like, Desmond Bane's turned out to be a player nobody projected him to be, and Memphis is great because of it. Are there protections on the pick we swap with the Jazz? So I don't think it's a pick swap. The Jazz just get the least pick of Houston, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. So at this time, it feels as though we're going to get Philadelphia's pick. Would be able to look at it. So you'd like to see all of them hover around 500, though, surprisingly. I don't think you'll touch this one, but so far this team is so much more fun in so many ways. We obviously lost a lot of players, but was losing Don's lack of hustle, care, the biggest ingredient to current team's heart. In other words, losing Don is yielding positive. So I did want to address this because I just don't want us to get into revisionist history. Don cared. Don's a good dude. Did Don – I've said this. I would say this to Don. I thought he got lost last year in what being a superstar was. And hopefully he recalibrates. He's got a new girl. He matures and quiets the voices around him. I thought he had too many voices around him. I thought he had too much. I don't know. I thought all the influences were positive. And so I think it's – but I don't want some revisionist history that Don didn't care. Like, Don cared. Did the team lack some collective chemistry and juice? 100%. And it just didn't vibe. But let's not, like, revisionistly history change who these guys are. They were all good people. Don gave what he had, everything he had to the Utah Jazz in the natural evolution of his career, in which some of it involved, I think, him having a hard time figuring out what it is to be a superstar. Rudy gave everything he had to the organization. We should only talk about these guys with positives, and we got a boatload of players and picks to build for the future for them. That's the transactional aspect of this. So I don't mind touching that. I don't think there's any question on last year's team, like they just didn't have the mojo. I think the better way to say it about last year's team, rather than sticking on an individual, the scars the group had encountered over the year was more than they were able to overcome. They had just picked up, it's not any different than some relationships, right? You've just had enough moments that weren't great. It's too hard to get over. Have a great one. Thanks very much for tuning in. It is Locked On Jazz. Booner and I will not be doing On the Floor tonight. It's been informed that we are actually violating inside of an NBA broadcast window by being live inside of an hour, and we have to try to figure out when else we can do it. So we're going to try to figure that out. It might be 2 hours now before games or something of that sort. Talk to you soon.